Thank you again for joining, everyone. So today we're going to be discussing volunteer management software and if volunteer impacts the right software for your needs. So who am I? My name's Micah. I'm a software sales advisor at Better Impact. I connect and support with small nonprofits to larger scaled enterprise-sized organizations across the western half of the United States who are exploring software solutions, specifically volunteer focused, volunteer management based. And my background from Kansas City, went to the University of Missouri, but I now live in the Pacific Northwest with my wife, and we love it up here. It's beautiful during the summer. So sad that that's going away, but until next year, we love going on hikes, national parks, all that fun stuff. Come from a lot of different organizations, do a bunch of variety of different things, but something that's kind of interesting is even though we have different like processes and requirements and such, we have a lot of common problems. A lot of that has to do with a lot of like manual input, manual entry. Like, for example, maybe you have an application form on your website, but it's like an embedded form or something like that. And as volunteers are applying, you're entering their information in some sort of like database or a spreadsheet, and it's taken a while to get back with them. And all these mundane tasks are taking a bunch of your time. It's not giving you enough time to recognize what your volunteers are doing or leading and engaging them. And then in order to like lead and engage them, maybe you're using some other system too, like some sort of like something for email or just like Outlook. Maybe there's something else for signups. And then maybe there's some other spreadsheet you're doing to like kind of calculate the hours and such. So all these disconnected tools, they're not talking with each other. And obviously it's kind of preaching to the choir a little bit. Obviously it sounds like, okay, there's got to be some sort of database kind of meant for this so then we can manage all of our volunteers, but it's not always that simple because one, you have to find the right system that meets your needs, and then it needs to fit the budget. And then even once you check those boxes, there's processes that can be a little bit of out of our control to like get people on board and approve this to be spent on. And depending on the type of organization that you're with, it can be more or less of a process, just depending where you're at. And then just kind of the last little curveball on here is that you want to be mindful on finding a database that's going to keep your information secure and your volunteer info confidential. And what we hope by the end of this webinar is that volunteer impact is a possible all-in-one solution to manage your volunteers. So yeah, just let a few other people in. Appreciate everybody staying muted there, and just kind of knocking off the security, going off of that. So how does one tell if a VMS is really actually prioritizing data protection? I'd say an easy way to tell is looking and seeing if the company themselves are directly ISO certified, and what ISO 27017, 27001 are. It's the world's best known standard for information security management system practices. It having the certification means that the vendor's respecting all of the best practices and principles enshrined in this standard. And there's an important distinction to know that having the actual certificate rather than saying, oh, hey, we followed the ISO guidelines is important because by having the certificate, it means there's accountability being held in place. The vendors being audited by an independent body every year to making sure all those specific standards are being met. So that's just a little pointer to know. And now we're going to do a little kind of a quick program assessment here. We'll do a little Zoom poll on 3 questions here to see how everyone's program's doing, just based on the last slides. Like the first question will be, which problem resonated with you the most? Too much data entry, tools, getting approval from leadership. You'll get all these questions here shortly. I'm just going through the slides on here. The next question will be how you're currently managing your volunteers, spreadsheets, VMS, or something else that's mysterious, other. And then in your opinion, what's most at risk if a change doesn't occur sooner than later? So you'll get all these questions here once I find the polls on here, which they've been found. And let's go ahead and launch this. Appreciate everybody's participation on here. Looks like most people are wrapping up. All right, so should be seeing the results here. So question one, which problem resonated the most from that last slide? Using too many disconnected tools. So it sounds like a lot, half of those in here are using multiple databases. The next one. So yeah, and that makes sense. Since about half of those are using different tools, then it's going to be the large majority are in a spreadsheet. And I'd say those who meet with me, a little over half are currently using spreadsheets. And you think like, oh, hey, it's 2024, everybody's using some sort of system. That's actually not really the case. So what I'm seeing on here, and then second question, those results, that falls within my expectations. And then turnover, disengagement are definitely the biggest things that are at risk. So this totally makes sense. Appreciate everybody's participation there. So yeah, let's go to the next part, which we're gonna discuss just a couple other data points from a G2 survey that surveyed over 1,000 some participants a few years ago. They asked a series of questions relating job satisfaction and the tools that they're using. Just one of the interesting finds I wanted to share on here is they asked, have you ever been dissatisfied at work due to mismatched software? Oh, wait, no, never mind. Excuse me. The question was uh, this is the response on here showing that more than half of all employees are at work because of the software tools that they're using, which is kind of surprising because if you're not like satisfied in your role, that's not sustainable in the long term. And when the right tools are not in place, it affects our levels of efficiency and effectiveness, and it contributes to unhappiness in our role. So that's why it didn't really surprise me that it was also found that around 1 in 8 employees, they left a job because they weren't set up for success. And that just leads to a lot of turnover, which is disruptive to progress and goal attainment. And it was, yeah, one of the highest things mentioned there on the questionnaire that you guys answered. So let's turn these frowns upside down. Less of this, more smiles, and getting you and your team with the tools that make you feel less frustrated and more empowered when you do your job. And that's what we're going to focus on. The bulk of today's session is on volunteer impact and how it can achieve just that. So here comes the fun part. Let me share volunteer impact here. All right, and feel free to drop like a little thumbs up in the chat. You should be seeing the back end of this database on here. And yeah, this is volunteer impact. It's a web-based solution. Everybody can have their own little their own admin login in which they can access the database. You can have full access, or maybe you have a specific role and you only need access to certain features. You can have a limited admin role for that too. And it comes at no additional cost. So you're not restricted by who needs access to the database and such. And when looking into a new system, I know there's a lot to look at. There's always a learning curve jumping into a new system, but something I want to really like highlight right here is the status update, as this provides an overall summary of your program, who your volunteers are, where they're at in the stages, from those who applied on your application form to those who are onboarding to your accepted volunteers and such. And the way how volunteers will be the most common way I would say they would be entered into the database here is they'll be filling out an online application form that you can brand, customize, and it can look something like this. So here we are. This is an example of a landing page that you can customize. You can upload your own banner. There's Facebook and X feeds you can add on here. You can change the color scheme so it makes sense and kind of fits on your website. And it just provides a first impression to those exploring on your website, how they can be involved, where they can be a fit. You can provide a summary of all of your different offerings. And if you were to utilize this landing page, something that's key to know is it doesn't require like any technical knowledge. Like you don't have to know how to build a website to make this, because what's all done here is you tick boxes on the back end and you drop in content, whether it be like copying and pasting or just writing out the description on here. And once the volunteer, they love what they're seeing so far, their next step would be filling an application, which is found here. And just know, once the application form's ready, you generate a link and you hyperlink it on the website. And that can apply to both the landing page. Maybe you want to use a landing page and provide like summary offerings, or maybe you already have something set up on your website and you just want the link to go right to the application form, which it would lead to this section. The branding will still retain with the banner, the color schemes. And then here's where volunteers can like see any policies you want to lay out up front. So that way there's agreement up front. Nobody's wasting any time. You can even modify what's the phrasing is on here when they agree to your policies. And the first step before the first step before the volunteer goes to your specific application is they'll make something called a My Impact page account. And that's going to be the volunteer's best friend, because this will allow them to do things self-sufficiently, like self-schedule, take trainings, record hours, update their information to save you time and make it more convenient for them. Not only is there like a browser version as well that I'm showing on here, bear in mind there's also a free app available for this on the Apple and Android Play Store. And when they make their My Impact page account, that's where they'll also create their that's where they'll enter in their basic contact info. So you can skip those basics and get right into the meat of your application form when building it out. And you can make as many different questions as you like, as you can have an unlimited amount of custom fields with different response types, from drop downs to long text responses, document uploads, multi-selection, and everything I enter in on here. As soon as I submit as a volunteer, I'm going to know right away what my next steps are, because you're going to be able to customize an automated email for what the volunteer needs to do next, like complete a background check, schedule a training, an interview, whichever's required. So they're never left hanging. And then on the flip side, on your side of things, you can receive an email notification if you would like, for once someone applies. So that's going to prompt you to sign in and see who recently applied on the application form, which with any of these bubbles, there's numbers represented on here, letting you know how many profiles land. And we have 4 applicants. So let me click this little green bubble here and it'll populate who's recently applied to our program so we can review and determine if we shall proceed. So let's take a look at Mr. Henry Upshaw here. Let's find his information that he submitted. So here's his like basic contact info. You can even place some custom fields if you'd like on this like main page for any upfront information you kind of want to see before going into the responses on here, like their emergency contact info. But you'll go to this custom field sections to find their responses to their application questions as you're reviewing them. And remember, these are all customized by you. You build these out as needed, and then you determine where you want it to appear, like in the application form, in the volunteers portal for them to update over time, or maybe it's just a backend custom field, and it can be a combination of any of those. As we're reviewing Henry as he's coming into the program, qualifications is where we'll track the steps that they need to complete. And just like the custom fields, so this is where it shows age range, background check, orientation. These are fields that we created ourselves and build it out as needed, as they're required for the program, because that's ultimately what these qualifications are. These are our non-negotiables. So we would use these to track which steps they need to complete as they're onboarding them. And then a really important feature with these qualifications is not only does it tie to the volunteer's profile, but you can also apply these on activities. And that's simply put, that's what volunteers sign up for. So that can be opportunities, roles, assignments, however you define it in your organization. It's what volunteers are signing up for, are called activities in our software. And you plug and play what the requirements are. In a common way, this is set up for a lot of organizations. It can be done in a variety of ways, but the kind of common way it's set up is volunteers are only seeing and signing up for activities in which they have the qualifications for, to help save everybody's time. It's possible to do alternatives as well, such as back-end scheduling and such, but that's just the common approach I want to lay out on there. And as we're working Henry through the process, let's say he's completed a background check, we mark the steps here. The qualifications also come with and expirations as well. So then that way the system's letting you know whenever something's timely and expiring. So like rather than looking at a spreadsheet or some system and like kind of like manually checking, hey, when's this training or something expiring? Once we enter it in here, we can now be alerted for anything timely that's expiring. And that's one of the other little alerts that you have on your dashboard on here, because not only is it showing like status updates, it's showing other helpful alerts like upcoming background check, upcoming qualifications specifically that are expiring, or pending signups. Even there's even like birthdays and anniversaries, so that we have the engagement piece and recognizing those who have an upcoming birthday or it's another volunteer anniversary for them, so then we can thank them for their commitment. And whichever like area you click on here, it's kind of the same concept as a status update. Like, so for this example, we have 3 expiring qualifications. I click this list and it lets me know, okay, which individuals do we need to remind them that they have something timely that's expiring? And you ultimately you define what that is, like which qualifications are expiring in the next 45 days. That's what we set on here. You can customize that day notice. And then now on here, we're following up and communicating to remind those who need to complete another certification, training, a background check, in which you can email one or multiple individuals. And you're supported in your communication, since you can send out emails in the software. You can have an unlimited email template library, since there's going to be all these different kinds of scenarios that you'll use the templates to support your communications with. And a good practice to utilize these templates is to make first and last name placeholders, so that way it gets personalized to everyone. Right now I only checked one volunteer, but let's say we added Chris and Betty. It'll say, hi, Cindy, Chris, Betty, thank you for volunteering with us for these few years. And man, time really flies. It's time to complete your background check again. So it's a nice little reminder for them. You can place links in here too, in case they need to go somewhere externally. And as you're emailing volunteers in the system, it appears as the email you're using with your login. All responses fall in everyone's natural email inbox from there. I appreciate everybody hanging in there with me. I know that's a lot of kind of an info dump on there. And just so you know, there will be time for a Q&A for those who recently joined or who have come back to their computer. Something I just have to mention about our software, though, is our support. As I have a hard time seeing anyone doing support better than we do, because if you have any questions, there's a little green chat bubble where you can reach out to a human being very quickly and get a response within 3 minutes on average during the weekday. And then even on the weekends, we're starting to add more commitments to support over the weekends, as now we'll check a few times to see if any questions come in. But you have other ways of self-help too. Like there's articles right here showing you step-by-step how to utilize each part of the portal. Like I can search right here, how do I make volunteer activities? And then it leads to suggested articles that help show step-by-step how to build out volunteer activities to assist you along the way. And then you can lean on our support team, get a quick response for any clarification on anything. There's also videos too, and many of these help articles have videos like attached in that help article. But if you're a visual person like me, there's a whole dedicated website called betterimpact.tv, where it has over 200 administrative training videos showing you step by step how to utilize each part of the portal. So that kind of summarizes where, and the reason for those fast response times is because we're international. So not only we're in North America, we're also in Europe, Australia. So we just kind of conveniently hit all the time zones. Wrapping up with this main a main page on here, just know like all these little bubbles we're looking at here where it says like admin news, pin searches, comparisons, saved reports, upcoming new features. You can there's a little customizability that you can have with this as you can check like which of these bubbles you want to appear on your admin page, where you want it displayed. So as soon as you're logged in, you're seeing the info you want to see. Something that's really handy though, that I really believe is one of our more powerful features are pin searches, because this allows you to quickly pull a list or communicate with a specific group of volunteers within seconds. And you set it up once, and it's tied specifically to your login. So you're only seeing relevant groups of profiles that you want to quickly communicate with or pull a list on. It's commonly used for things like managing the onboarding process. That's why you see some onboarding ones on here. It could be used for other communications, such as letting volunteers know in case a shift or something gets canceled. We can send out a quick email or a text message, because you can even make dynamic date searches on there too. So it's volunteers who are signed up for an activity today, this week, or something like that. The example I'll walk through here, though, is on onboarding applicants who haven't completed a background check submission. So with each of these searches we've created, which you can make as many as you like, you can always do a pre-search first to see if any results are going to populate before actually diving into the search. So we have 4 applicants. They still haven't completed the background check process. Let's just quickly remind them that in order to become part of the program, they need to complete a background check. They'll let us know who they are: Donna, Graham, Will, Henry. And then here we are with our email templates again. So we'll have a saved email template to remind them that they need to complete the background check still. And we appreciate them filling out the application. And then, yeah, remember, you can add attachments. The email will come from your admin email. Everybody else is automatically BCC'd, so it's personalized on the volunteer's end, and all responses follow in everybody's natural email inbox from there. And then something I'll walk through on that too, because it's going to be really helpful with kind of understanding the structure of making a groups and such, or targeting profiles in the software, is like making that pin search. And I'm going to walk through how that applicant without background checks was created on here. It was something that why I find this software is user friendly is when you learn how to do one thing, like creating an email group, then you know how to report and filter on volunteers, because this search and filtering interface is uniform throughout the platform. It always first starts with filtering the type of profile we're looking at. So these are applicants without background check. We check applicant here. Then we can add as many search criteria as we want to this search. So it can be based on their contact information in their profile. It can be based on customization, such as if they have uploaded a document, response to a question. It can be shift related to an activity. We're going through the background check example. So a background check's a qualification. It's a requirement. So we'll plug that in. And this is our qualifications library. We created all of these since they're a requirement for something along the way. So let's add background check. Let's say it's empty since they haven't completed it. You can stack as many other filters as you like, but let's find those 4 volunteers. Populate again. Donna, Graham, Henry, Will, here they are. So instead of going through those steps, you save it, pin it on your dashboard. So now you're always a click away from reminding those that they need to complete a background check, upload a document, or something else. And those pin searches are live. So let's say Henry got back with us, he completed the background check. We would go to Henry's profile in his qualifications tab. We will update background checks passed when it expires. And once that's saved and updated, then he'll be cleared off that list since he no longer fits that criteria anymore. And now we'll have 3 people left. So as you update profiles, those pin searches will be updated as well, since they reflect in real time. And then with that, I know time flies. We're already halfway through. Hopefully everybody's hanging in there. Something I wanted dive into are like reporting as particularly for hours, since that's important for a lot of different types of organizations. And this little line graph right here, where it's showing a trend upward, is where we'll find all of our different types of reports. But I'm going to go there the quicker way. I saved the hours by volunteer report as a favorite. Since any page you land on, you can save it as a favorite for ease of navigation, so then you can just dive right into it. So now all I need to do is just simply enter in the date range right here, which you're provided some built-in kind of template ranges for common scenarios like this month, the last year, this quarter. You can always do a custom date range if needed. I'm just going to look at volunteers hours this year, and then here we are. We have those who contributed the most at the top with their name, total hours, entries, and it's all calculated here on the bottom, and providing the total number of hours, volunteers, average hourly output per volunteer, and it's readily exportable. So if we need to export it to Excel, Word, PDF, we can do so here. And remember, this is hours for volunteers across our whole program. You can always report it on a specific type of volunteer if needed, and that's like how I mentioned our search and filtering. It'll be the same process with this report, kind of like how we made that email group. So we can check like all volunteers. We'll just keep the example simple here. And then let's say these are volunteer hours for a specific type of volunteers. They've signed up for a specific activity. They're assigned to it. So I'm just going to look at info booth in this little demo account here, which is representing the museum. So we have 28 volunteers who have been info booth attendants. And then now it's just the same thing. We're just putting in the date range. So now I'm showing info booth attendant hours for this year, which we have the calculations here at the bottom, the totals for everyone. It's still readily exportable. And you can save reports too. So like with those selections I made in that criteria, when we save it, it'll go to a saved reports library in which you can reference it and then go back to it. So in case if it's like a monthly type report or something, you just simply reload the past search. It'll populate the results in real time, and then you can report on it from there. Any reports that you're saving, it's tied to your login. So you're only seeing your own reports that you're making saves on. Last thing on reporting is our the other type of report offered in our software are raw data reports, and this is going to be common if you need to export any profile information out of our software. And here we go again. It's the same old search and filtering, so we're already getting a little familiar with it. I'm just going to check everybody. I'm going to skip the criteria on there, but just know that process is the same. Lets us know what the results are, and then now I'm just picking and choosing what I want to export on here based on their profile information, such as name, custom fields. We'll just check the about you. Let's just say for whatever reason we want to export that. It can be their qualifications, interests, availability, and everything you toggle on here. You can save it as well, so that way you don't have to go through all those again if it's a recurring type of report. And before exporting, you're always able to preview that before making the export. So that way you could check and make sure that these are all the fields that you want to push out of the software to Excel or CSV if needed on here. I know that was quite a bit there. I appreciate everybody hanging in there. I'll now switch gears to the volunteers portal before we leave some time for some Q&A at the end. So the volunteers portal, which we can find here. The volunteers portal's always going to be branded. So all of the branding that you saw in the application form, it's going to retain. There's a banner, there are color schemes on here. that you can customize. And right off the bat, I'm able to see like what my hours are, upcoming shifts. I don't even have, and for the upcoming shifts as a volunteer, I don't even have to log in to know when they are, as I can go to my contact info tab and and subscribe to automated email reminders for when my next shifts are. Or I can sync what I've already signed up for in my schedule tab. I can sync to my personal calendar, like Google, iCal, or Outlook Calendar, so I can be reminded in that fashion for my next shifts. But right off the bat, like this volunteers portal, like they can see any like badges, since you can do some fun things in here for like recognition for volunteers, such as if they hit a certain number of hours. If you want to make a virtual badge for that, you can, which you can upload an image made elsewhere or use a template from within our software. It could be like skill based, or maybe they've been part of the program for so long, like 5, 10, 30 years, and there's badges and tiers for each of them. And they'll also still be able to see any socials that you're sharing. This is commonly used for like in newsletters and such. So you can just drop in images, videos, and such for anything important upcoming. Maybe there's like an event or something. And then as a volunteer, you can place any important documents for them to access at any time, so they don't have to reach out to you and wait for you to respond. It's much more convenient for them to just simply log into their portal, either on this browser version, or if they're on the go, through their mobile app on Apple or Android. And really, there's not a whole lot to it with this volunteer portal, because we're trying to keep it as simplistic as possible. As when working with with volunteers in the community, it's really diverse. You meet all different kinds of wonderful people. There's going to be some that are going to have more of a technical background. There's going to be others not so much. So the goal of this volunteers portal is to find that nice little middle ground where we can make it as simplistic as possible, but it still allows them to do things self-sufficiently, like scheduling for shifts, recording hours, and it's clearly laid out in specific tabs. If the volunteer has any questions, they can always reach out to you. There's a contact tab here where you can, in your admin profile, you can take a box if you want to be a contact person, so volunteers can reach out to you directly in this portal for any help. And then they're supported with help articles too. So volunteers can click this help button, and it'll lead to a little help article library that shows them step-by-step how to use this simplified portal with videos and articles. And yeah, they can update their own info here, such as their contact info, other custom fields. But something I want to show is how they can sign up for activities. So they can do so in a list or a calendar view. It could be preference, and sometimes there's a reason for going one or the other. Like you can go in the list if a volunteer wants to like sign up in bulk, or if they want to sign up for activities that don't have a specific scheduling pattern, because it's each activity, they can have their own sets and rules. You determine if it has a shift pattern, what that shift pattern is, what the qualifications are. And then, like I said before, a common approach for a lot of organizations is as a volunteer, which is what we're seeing right here, is I'm seeing only activities that I have the requirements for, in which I can sign up for. I can further filter it by a category of interest. And then once I click a shift, there's a little pre-description, just kind of giving me a nice little summary of what I'm about to commit for. And once I sign up as a volunteer, I'll either be on the schedule right away and confirmed, or admin approval will be needed. And that's just going to depend on the type of role it is, and if it makes sense for it to be seamlessly, automatically self-scheduling, or if you still want some sort of verification process for an admin approval. And that will be an alert on your dashboard, letting you know if there are any pending signups there. And then once they sign up, they can record their hours in multiple ways. They can do it like logging hours after the fact, and it's up to you. Just kind of like with the activity settings, you can determine if it's self-scheduling, back-end scheduling, or something in between. It's up for you to decide for each activity. Do you want volunteers recording hours after the fact, like so, where I can just put in the hours and such? Or maybe you can toggle that option off and they have to like clock in and clock out on site using a kiosk, or clock in and clock out using their phone. And then just kind of throwing another option out there is you can have it to where hours are automatically recorded too, provided that there's an actual date and time for that shift for the system to recognize. And everything I'm doing here actually as a volunteer, from like scheduling, updating info, recording hours, it's always possible to back end a volunteer profile, if anything, if you need to fix their hours or record hours for them or assign them if needed. And as they're recording their time, whether it be from the time clock or logging hours after the fact, it's possible to inquire the volunteer to ask other questions too that can be qualitative or quantitative. So, and you can make it required or not required, like interactions. It's common to use for like mileage and things like that. So that way you can report on not only the hours they gave, but how many miles they drove for reimbursement, qualitative information such as any incident. So this it just gives you an idea. So that way you're getting like some other impact measures besides the time they're giving. So you can truly evaluate your program, what's going well, where can we possibly make improvements, all those other data points. And then wrapping up, two other things I want to show on here are reports. Since volunteers can self-track their own hours at any time logging into this portal, they can see a summary of their contributions. This is just a little built-in summary, just giving me at a glance, what have I done this past year? But I can always run a custom report for my own hours, and it work just kind of like how an admin can look at all hours. But this is only showing mine, what I've done, what I did, when I did it, the time I gave, the total hours. I can export it if needed for tracking purposes. And then the last thing, I would say one of the top features of this volunteers portal is the training content. So it's possible for volunteers to take online trainings in this personal portal in the browser or app version. And it's up to you to decide which trainings you want to be placed in this portal, or it can be hidden on the back end. You can make as many different trainings as you like. And the content can be in a variety of things. Common approaches are like a link to a YouTube video, or it could just be like plain text, images, GIFs. If you really want to go all out, it's possible to do like PowerPoint. This one's showing GIFs on here, so the content here is laid out. And then the quizzing's done in multiple choice formats. So you can make as many questions as you like. And then you set what the pass rate is. So once a volunteer passes a quiz, they can have their training updated as completed. And then just kind of tying it all back together, the qualification fields can be linked with these lessons. So like there can be a hand hygiene training qualification linked to this lesson. So once I pass this training by hitting 100%, let's say, then I can have that qualification automatically update in my profile that I have it. And it could be the difference in order for me to be able to see and sign up for more opportunities. Like a common example, I'll just say for like an animal shelter that they like using, well, a lot of organizations like using these e-learnings as a way for volunteers to unlock new training. So to the animal shelter example, like trainings are set up for dog walking. Volunteers will take the dog walking training once they pass it, they have the dog walking qualification, and now they can sign up for shifts that require that dog walking qualification. So it can work in a variety of ways. That was just one example of it. There's some testimonials from our current customers I want to share. Here, let me make sure we're on the right screen, which I believe we are. And then now let's find that testimonial, and here it is.
So why did I select this product? It integrated with my background check product. I can tell you that the sales and customer support people are outstanding. Direct contact with a person that's talking me through all of the steps, doing training for us and my whole team. And inside the product is so much help. 24/7, you can chat with a person who's really a person. At 3 o'clock in the morning when we were first converting, I was talking, I was playing, I was trying to figure out something. I hopped onto the chat And I was thinking, there's nobody going to be around at 3 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Standard Time. And lo and behold, within a couple minutes, I was talking to a guy who was on the other side of the globe, who was answering all of my questions for me. It is fun and kind, and I don't ever feel stupid. So I can't say enough about the customer support and the sales part.
Yeah, it was value for money and on budget what we wanted. Easy to implement. We had 300 volunteers already on the books. So we were able to extract the information into a spreadsheet, and then they took it away and uploaded all the information in the right place, gave the usernames and the passwords so that we could then write out to the volunteers with. Better Impact is I call it a cradle to grave. It's an application right the way through a volunteering journey. So once they do their application form, they're already setting up their volunteer page. But the team were very, very supportive. As I said already, very, very supportive.
Why did we go with Volunteer Impact? Because there were a few other options out there for us. It's definitely an affordable management system. It was something, it actually cost us less to move towards Better Impact than it was with our former system. There were a lot of volunteer-centered features, allowing the volunteers to own their own experience. And that was something that we saw right off the bat. We had heard of some great features like self-scheduling, and how volunteers can go in and update and change their own addresses, schedule time off for vacations. So these were things that were definitely selling points for us. My impact page gives the volunteers the opportunity to absolutely own their experience with us. Everything that they need is at their fingertips. If they need extra resources or easy ways to communicate with us, it's all there through that.
I've been using Better Impact since about 2016, 2017, and I absolutely love it. My favorite part of the system, and it's really hard to actually just come up with one thing, but I would certainly focus on the personal profile reporting. You can fully customize it to get as much data as you need, as much information as you need, or as little as you need in that one report. It's incredible.
Now that we're getting close to the end anyway, let's just go ahead and save some time for some questions. Something I'll say that what they were saying, they're like Wendy, that first one, she was talking about the support, how she was, she can sign up for like different like trainings with her organization. If she has any questions, she can reach out to a human being. And she was like reaching out to someone at like 3 a.m, expecting like no response, but someone from the UK like reached out. So that was kind of what she was speaking on.